A brutal quarter for the airlines. The major carriers lost more than half of their value now. Spring schedules are being reworked, and Phil LeBeau joins us now with more. Hey, Phil.
Hey, Joe. You know, we talk so much about what percentage of flights have been cut, how much capacity has been taken out of the system, that I've had a number of people say to me, well, what are they still flying? How many of their flights are still out there? So here's the best estimate that we have based on April and May. And again, we're not going to get into each month. It moves around a little bit. But generally speaking, of the spring schedule, Southwest will make 60% of their flights, United 42%, Delta 30%, American 20%. The big three there, United, Delta, and American, in terms of the legacy carriers, lower than Southwest because, remember, their international schedules have basically been brought down to maybe 5%, if that. Now, in a lot of cases, they're doing almost special runs, if you will, when you're talking about transatlantic as well as Pacific. So now when you take a look at the passengers here in the United States, we've been watching this every single day. And the reason is some people are wondering, can it go below 100,000? Sure, it could go below 100,000. We didn't think it would go below 250,000. The number of people who were flying on Monday, 154,000. We'll get the latest numbers a little later on this morning. Those are the number of people screened by the TSA who go in through through security and in onto flights. A couple of airline-specific stocks that we want to look at. American, Delta, and United. When you look at these guys, keep in mind that they have already cut their in-flight services. They've closed a number of their frequent flyer lounges, or they've severely restricted what they're offering in those lounges as they try to cut costs. And then also take a look at Spirit Airlines. And we're showing you this because Spirit is halting its flights into the New York City area. That means LaGuardia, Newark, Hartford, a couple other smaller airports. Don't be surprised if we see more of this, guys, with other airlines. JetBlue cutting back its New York City flights by 80%, and it makes sense. Who's going into the New York City area right now, aside from maybe health professionals and a few other people? Nobody's doing it for leisure. They certainly aren't for business either. So it makes sense that you're seeing dramatic cuts in the number of flights into that northeastern part of the country.
Hey, Phil, I have a question for you, just in terms of how these loans would work. I know that the airline gets the loan, and it assumes that they continue to pay their employees. So they pay their employees,
right,
and they think, okay, this is a great idea. We want this loan. But let's say this drags out longer than they had anticipated. They see more problems come back in the fall or the winter of next year. If they then decide to lay off employees as a result, do they still get those loans forgiven? Or is this if you've got to save all of your employees for forever?
Well, you're looking at, there's two different things in the $50 billion that the airlines get. One is immediate cash grants. That is not repaid. It doesn't have to be repaid. The other $25 billion comes in the form of loans. And the terms are still being, finalized by the Treasury Department. But in broad context, Becky, you're right that they have agreed that they are not going to lay off any workers, have major furloughs through September 30th. That's the rules for those loans. Now, you get to September 30th, and we're still looking at the traffic levels that we're seeing right now. I'm not sure that the airlines can sit there and say, look, we got to do something here. We're losing millions, billions of dollars flying planes with only a handful of people on board. If this doesn't change by the end of September, I suspect that we would see furloughs, or you would likely see another round of the government coming in and saying, we want you to maintain service. Remember, guys, ultimately, this is because the government has said, we want you to maintain service. That's a condition of the bailout.
Right.
So if the government's doing that, they are forcing the airlines in large measure to keep the staffing close to where they have. But we should also point out, Becky, you've seen a number of the airlines have 17, 20, 25,000 of employees who have said we're taking unpaid leaves. They're cutting down on their salary, maybe going to a 3-day work week. So it's not like the airlines are just kind of whistling past the graveyard here. They realize what's going on, and they've cut costs dramatically. They do not want to have layoffs either.